Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another session of ENG3E. That's Grade 11 Workplace Preparation English, brought to you by WASA Distance Education Center. I'm your instructor, Mike Laverty, and today's date is Monday, March 27th, 2023. We are on class number 24 of a 34 class course. So we've got about 11 more classes to go, including today's date. We are finishing our discussion of Unit 4 today and tomorrow. The only aspect left to discuss for Unit 4 is the culminating activity, a workplace report. So I'm going to walk through that one with you today. So just let's get our bearings here, where we are in terms of the course delivery, the course schedule. This is week 7 of term 2A. So we're into the final the final third of the course. So we've got let's get a nice green color. We've got 9 weeks to go, 9 weeks in total. And so 7, 8, and 9 will be our final weeks together on this course. So we've got those 3 weeks of classes left. And June 15th, the graduation date, is upcoming. So I mentioned that just to keep that date on your radar. That's you won't be able to submit any assignments past that date. So that's your big deadline coming up, especially for everybody registered as an independent learner. So you've got that June 15th deadline. So I'm just giving an encouraging word to everybody listening out there. I know what it's like when you're busy and life's bearing down on you and all the pressures and all that. But you know, if you have the time and you can find the focus, then keep that June 15th deadline in place in your mind. All right, so we've got units 1, 2, and 3 all taken care of. We devoted week 6 to Unit 4, and we'll need a couple of classes this week. And then I believe on Wednesday, we'll shift into talking about Unit 5, our final unit in this course, before we tackle the final exam. So if you're listening on 91.9 FM, thank you for tuning in. Or maybe you've got us on Bell ExpressVu, channel 972. Always be aware that you can phone in to the studio. So our local line is 1-807-737-4017. And you can phone us toll free at 1-800-465-7144. We broadcast live Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 1 p.m. to 1:55 Central Standard Time. And you can also listen on Zoom by going to the zoom.us website, loading up the application, clicking on join, and then enter the meeting ID 417-6699-799. And of course, you can find my channel on YouTube. That's Laverty Wasa at Laverty Wasa, and you'll find all my YouTube channels. They're organized by playlists. Please email me directly, contact me directly at mlaverty@nnecschools.org. Find me on Facebook, send me a message on Messenger at Laverty Wasa, and phone the Wasa studio the Wasa main office at 1-807-737-1488. I'm at extension 2211. Now, if you're not looking to talk to me, you can phone that number and dial 0 and speak to our receptionist, who will direct you to like a guidance counselor, for example, to help plot your next moves. You can phone us toll free at 1-800-667-3703. And just a reminder to stay on top of your assignments and to submit them to your instructor in small batches. I'm looking for about 5 assignments. That would be ideal for me, or one large assignment. And just know that you've it takes about 10 weeks to complete the course activities, and it's good to stay focused. So I do give students a suggested timeline, and I'll give a review on that maybe before tomorrow's class. All right, so let's move on to today's lesson. We'll look at our image of the day before we go into our culminating activity, a workplace report. So you will take notes as we review the required elements of Unit 4's culminating activity, a workplace report. So we touched upon it on Thursday's class in class 23, but I want to go back and put those required elements up on the board, make sure that you know everything that's being asked of you. And we will review the writing process and brainstorm ideas for planning out your report. Generate a first draft for your workplace report, or develop an outline that you can use later to write a rough copy, Part A. So I think today's class should give us enough time to focus on Part A of the culminating activity, and just to go over how you write that, and then I think it's important to make sure you get Part A down, because Part B has a direct connection to what you write in Part A. So when you're writing your story in Part A, you should be thinking about the report that's going to be written based on this incident that comes up. And probably the most important aspects of that are you're going to have someone who's sending the report. So the report is going to be from someone, and the report's going to have a sendee, right? So it's the report is being sent out by an individual, and the report is also going to be received by somebody. So I would give some careful thought to who's sending the report and who is receiving it. All right, so yeah, that's your success criteria, is just to simply get a first draft done for your Part A, and if you can't get that done, then maybe just an outline, because that's good. That's probably good enough for just for feeling successful after watching this class or after listening to it. So a job well begun is almost half done, right? Or something like that. I think I heard that in the fortune cookie, and fortune cookies aren't always the best source of advice, but I think in this case it applies, right? So you may not have a first draft, but at least if you can get an outline down, that's going to take you in the right steps and move you in the right direction. All right. So up on the screen, and if you're listening out there on the radio, I'll do my best to use my communication skills to let you know what we're looking at, what we're discussing here. So we have the Plutchik model of emotions, and they provide a simple, logical way to make sense of feelings. So Part A of the culminating activity asks you to describe a story, and you pay close attention to the emotions of the people involved. So in a sense, for the culminating activity, at least the first part of it, you're going to be using some storytelling techniques, and you are telling a story, and that story is going to talk about the emotions that were felt by the people in the incident, right? So and more on that as we look at the actual assignment guidelines. But I just wanted to pull up this emotion. It looks like a color wheel. So if you're familiar with painting and design, they have a color wheel, and the color wheel has different colors on it, and there's opposite colors, there's complementary colors, and the colors are grouped by how they relate to each other, how they're different from each other. And so Plutchik is a psychologist who produced this emotion wheel, and I thought it was kind of cool. Robert Plutchik, the Wheel of Emotions, right? So I found this on an online source, and I'll put this in the description of the video so people can interact with this online tool if they want. And it's just about to get, it's important to, connect with your own emotions, especially when you're thinking back on an incident and trying to identify, what you were feeling, in that moment, and just if you can give a name to it, if you can name the emotion, then you can talk about it. This comes up in a lot of like parenting resources, for example. Like we talk about helping children, give a name to a feeling, right? Like you're feeling this way, and then part of a parent's job is to teach the child like what you're feeling here is anger, or you're afraid right now, or you're really really happy, right? So in the inner spectrum here, we have these really primary emotions, and they sort of get weaker as you go on. So you've got rage, and rage is the most intense emotion here that we have on in that category. So similar words are overwhelmed, furious. Typical sensations, so bodily sensations are pounding heart, seeing red. What is rage telling you? I'm blocked from something vital. And how can rage help you? It can help you attack an obstacle. And then if we reduce the intensity, we have anger, and then we have frustration, right? And then we can see how emotion is being put on a spectrum. So people start off being annoyed, right? They're frustrated, they're prickly, and then that turns into feelings of anger, being mad, being fierce, feeling strong and heated, and then that culminates with rage, right? And then on the opposite end of that spectrum, the opposite of rage is terror, right? So when someone is terrified, they're alarmed, they're petrified, they find it hard to breathe, and then if we reduce the intensity, we have stress, we have fear, and then we have apprehension, right? Someone is worried, someone is anxious. Okay, so I wanna think about those words. We have loathing and admiration, trust and disgust, acceptance and boredom. So these are sort of we have happiness and sadness on opposite ends. We have amazement and vigilance, operating on opposite ends of this spectrum. So I'm gonna come back and consult this as I begin to write my incident up. So I'm gonna write down my story, and I'm gonna come back and refer back to this emotion wheel, and understanding how people are feeling in a certain situation. So let's just pull back to our. Let's get you back onto my slideshow. There we go. Okay, so we've had a look at the emotion wheel. Now let's look at the culminating activity. So as you most likely have discovered by now, the workplace is not always a pleasant and comfortable place to be. On occasion, and sometimes fairly often, there is disagreement and conflict between or among coworkers, or between a coworkers and a customer, supervisor, or manager. A variety of issues can and do lead to such disagreement and conflict. There are a range of emotions such as disappointment, anger, sadness, fear, jealousy, and embarrassment that are experienced by people involved. You are going to think about a situation or situations that you may have been involved in yourself at work in the past, or perhaps something more recent, or perhaps even something that is happening right now, and express your feelings about it or them. If you have not experienced any sort of disagreement or conflict in the workplace, or perhaps you don't have any work experience to begin with, Think about a situation that you have experienced other than in the workplace. So part A. In approximately 3/4 to a page, handwritten, you are to describe a situation or situations that you have experienced. You do not need to mention any people's names in your writing, but make up names if you wish, and whether or not he, she, they, was, were, are a coworker or supervisor or manager. Was there or has there been any need to create an incident report? The point here with the assignment is to reveal an issue or issues that can occur in any workplace and needs to be dealt with. So part B, based upon the workplace text incident report found on pages 176 to 177 in your textbook, The Road Ahead, you are going to develop a similar report in memo format as a result of your experience described in part A, or one that you will just make up. This will be your decision to make. Your report will be about the same length as that of the incident report in your textbook. So if you recall, in our anthology, The Road Ahead, there is an incident report. That's on page 176 and 177. It's from Mia Wong, the cashier, to her boss, Carol Bataille. So your memo is going to follow that format. So it's about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 paragraphs of varying length. So it's if you were to type this out, it'd be about a little under or about a single spaced page that's typed up. So that's what you're looking at. So and then you're submitting a rough copy and a final copy of both these assignments. So what I'll do is I'll do a live demonstration of part A, and then hopefully that will assist you with thinking about part B. Because as I mentioned, when you write part B, it'll be written in memo format. So it'll be from there's going to be a sender, a person who sends the report, and the memo. So the person who sends the person who sends the report in memo format, right? They send it, but you got to ask yourself, like, who are they sending it to? So please note, you'll be using the steps of the writing process to complete this activity, and an important aspect is revising and editing. So correct spelling, grammar, punctuation are therefore essential to receiving a good mark on this activity. Use of a computer for your final copies is recommended. Okay, so let's have a look at this assignment. I'm just going to pull up a Word document, and we will review the 5 steps of the writing process, or as many as we can take care of right now. And just make sure I am sharing that. Okay. So what I like to do any time that I'm working on a Word document, or if you're writing out your assignments on pen and paper, then that's always a great way to keep track of which assignments you're working on. So if you're working in Microsoft Word, you can go to Design at the top of the screen, and you can it's Layout, and you can go and you can select. Actually, no, where is that? I've gotten so used to just drawing or just typing in the word. Sorry. Yeah, so at the top of the screen, which is called the ribbon, you've got your main categories: File, Home, Insert. So if you go to Insert and then go to Header, it'll start, you can start typing in your header that way, or you can just simply double click at the header. So I'm going to put my name, Mike Laverty. I will put the course. Well, technically I'm teaching it, but for this exercise, I will pretend that I am teaching it. So I've got OLC 4O. And, oh, why are we doing that? And this is Unit 4, and it is the culminating activity. And we have the title of that is almost got it, a workplace report. All right, so I got my heading done. So what we'll do together is we'll review all of the steps of the writing process. So the first one is planning. So step 1 is where you do some planning, and then here's where you can do an outline as well. Step 2 is the writing, and then this is free writing, writing based off of writing based from I guess writing, yeah, based on an outline. Jotting down key ideas, that kind of thing, right? So, and this is probably the first decision that you'll make as a writer. Whether you're writing fiction or writing an assignment for an English course, you have to make a decision on how you're going to get started. And if you've got an incident in mind, and a workplace incident, comes readily to mind, like when you read that prompt and the prompt says, for this assignment, you've got to think about a workplace incident that could have potentially needed to be written up, then you would, you could just simply start writing about it, or you could start by doing some planning. So we have planning slash, outlining, brainstorming, whatever the case may be, right? But they are two different steps. Step 1 is where we're strictly in a planning mode, and we're working on developing a template or just jotting down ideas in point form. And step 2 is when we actually do some writing, and then we start writing down our ideas, and what we write here could become our final assignment, and it could take us down the path that we need to go on, or it might not. So it's really worth mentioning that writing can be a way of letting yourself know what you want to talk about, and we think through writing. And it's not like we just plan out our writing activities completely in our heads, and then our written work is just simply our thoughts recorded. So it's not quite that simple. Sometimes we don't know what we want to say, and excuse me, we use writing as a way to get there, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into that step number 2, and because I do have a situation that comes to mind, and I want to just start writing about that situation, and then I want to have you just see how it looks on my screen. And I'll just go for about 5 minutes, and then I'll narrate what I'm doing. I'll talk through what I'm writing, and then we'll jump through. So what this is based off of, it's an experience I had working at it was a laundry plant in Winnipeg, Manitoba. This is about the early to mid 2000s. So when I worked there, I was involved with a lot of different staff members in a lot of different situations, and this one came to mind. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start writing my ideas out. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do what is called a free writing session. So sometimes when you do a free writing session, you you have an outline and you're working directly off that outline. But for me, I'm just gonna just start writing about this incident, and then after I write the incident, I might go back to step one, and that'll help me sort of plan it, outline it, brainstorm some ideas. So we'll just start writing, and we'll see how far this takes us. So I've got, let's see. Right now I've got 16 words. So let's get a whole bunch more words than that. So let's just say um in the year 2004. I'm not really sure how important it is for me to mention the dates and time, because I will change it, and I'm not going to use people's real names. Um let's just say an incident occurred at a laundry. No, let's just call it an industrial laundry facility. Let's see. Okay, so one afternoon, so this is what actually happened in the story. So a worker was operating a forklift, and so what happened was they were attempting to put a pallet. So if you know what a pallet is, it's a wooden crate, or it sits on the floor, and you pile things on top of it, and then you wrap that in plastic or whatever the case may be. And then a forklift is, it looks like a two-pronged fork, and someone can lift that pallet up and stack it up on top of other pallets, typically in a warehouse situation. So this is what happened in this situation. So one afternoon, a worker was operating a forklift and was attempting to put a pallet on a raised mezzanine, which is just like a metal floor, raised mezzanine slash metal shelving unit. I guess the shelving unit makes it seem like it's kind of small, but it was actually huge. So this worker ran into a problem, and the pallet the pallet they were trying to stack. What happened was it got hung up on the edge of the shelf, and it was in danger of falling off. And then I'm just go based off my memory. The pallet was, it was approximately, let's just say, 15 feet in the air. And then the problem was there was several workers who were stationed nearby, who could have been seriously hurt had that pallet fallen over. And so what happened was the operator, the staff operating the forklift, he sort of screamed out. He screamed out that he needed help, and then a few other coworkers came over to investigate the situation. And then this is where and this is where we might want to talk about the emotion that people were feeling in that incident. But I've got it. I've got some words down on the page. Let's see if I go to my review tool. I can see that I've got 113 words, right? So just a simple act of talking through your work out loud and just typing it in. So you see, like, as I'm talking out loud, I'm writing my words down and just using a natural speaking voice and getting all my details down. And so maybe now that I've got some words done and just by talking about the incident, it's sort of come back fresh into my memory. So I'm going to do here is I'm going to go into my planning, outlining, step 1, and I'm going to start thinking about some characters. So maybe just thinking about our elements of narrative a little bit. And our characters are going to be, I said I was going to change the name, and so I will use Larry. Now he's the staff member. He's the staff member operating forklift. So he's like the main character. I can insert his name down here. So I'm going to have Larry, the staff member, operating the forklift. We'll have Sam. And Sam is one of the engineers who worked in this plant. Okay, and I will have, let's see, we'll do Carol. And she is the production manager. And let's just see, we'll do Mark. And then he will be, one of, this will be one of Larry's co-workers. I don't want to introduce too many people in this story because it is a fairly short story. But so and then we'll have, let's just see, we'll do Nancy. And Nancy is someone working near the forklift. So we're thinking about different emotions coming from our characters, coming from our people in the story, because that is, as we learned, that is one of the required elements of this culminating activity. So that's just good practice to keep in mind for, not only this culminating activity, but, any assignment you're given for this chorus or in, in the working world, right? In, if someone gives you a list of instructions, if you're given a task, if that, if that task is laid out in a manual somewhere, if it's laid out in a procedure, right? If someone has emailed you and given you specific instructions on what to do, it's very good practice to make sure that you haven't missed any of the required elements. So one of the required elements here is to bring some emotion into the scene, and as part of my planning and my outline. So yeah, I'm just thinking out loud here, but I think this would be very useful if you followed this model. So let's just see. So to help us help plan out, and what we're doing is we're planning out part A of the assignment. So we need to develop a list of all the people involved in the incident, And this is going to help when we talk about the report, right? So we need to talk about who's involved because everybody involved is going to be mentioned in the report, but we also need to mention and we'll talk about their mental and physical states during and then maybe after the incident. So what they felt, what they experienced. If we think about that emotion, the emotional wheel that we looked at as today's image of the day, they often associated physical feelings with physical feelings that went along with the emotions, right? So there's the emotion itself, but then there's like the immediate direct feelings, right? So like headaches or feeling like you're lighter than air, right? If you're feeling super happy, or time going by quickly when you're really enjoying yourself, and that kind of thing, right? So maybe some notes on you know okay, and then maybe I'll go back to my story and finish it off a little bit. So Sam, he is one of the engineers who maintain the equipment. Um, so upon seeing the situation, became very verbally abusive towards Larry. So and this is actually what happened, right? He shouted at Larry to figure out something fast, and that he might be fired for getting himself and others in such a dangerous situation. And then the manager, the production manager, Carol, arrives on the scene and starts to troubleshoot the situation while also getting into an argument with Sam. Okay, and if I go back to my characters here. So I've got characters. Let's underline these characters here. So I've got Larry, the staff member operating the forklift. So I'm going to do characters, and on this side I'm going to type in their emotions, right? So I'm going to make note of their mental state. So Larry is my staff member operating the forklift. So his emotions include fear, fear at fear at the dangerous situation, shame. He feels shame afterwards for, putting others in danger. So we got Sam, who we talked about here. He's got anger. He's experiencing anger at Larry, for putting others in danger. He's got actually let's go back to our wheel here, right? So let's see, we've got anger, disgust, terror, amazement, grief, sadness, trust. Okay, let's go back to our. So I've got a few ideas just by looking at that wheel. So disgust at Carol for not properly training staff. So we got Carol, the production manager. She experiences anger towards Sam for, questioning her leadership. So we got Nancy. She is, fear for her own safety. And let's just see here. Mark, we've got let's see what other emotions we can put in here. We've got interest, anticipation, vigilance. So vigilance is intense, focused. Okay, let's just say, so Mark is, so he experiences, let's see, vigilance, by staying by his friend's side. Okay, so that just sort of gives me the situation. So, and then I can mention some other details like, Nancy ran from her workstation after hearing Larry's screams for helps and put in a call to the production manager. And then, Mark also heard the screams and immediately went to try and help his friend slash co-worker Larry, try to try to problem solve. Try to problem solve and resolve this dangerous issue. Let's just see. Mark even intervenes and he gets Sam and Carol, the production manager, talking productively and finding a solution. Larry is quite, stressed out and agitated, but another forklift is found, and together they push the pallet into its proper place. Larry gets out of the forklift and goes with Carol to her office for a debriefing or slash, further explanation. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just working through it, and it is my rough copy. And I've been doing this for a while, so it's once you do it for a while, it gets easier and easier to just sort of produce writing and when I'm reading it out loud, I'm kind of just changing little things here and there, but really the important thing is just writing and getting your ideas down on the page, especially in that part 2 where you write there. It's wherever possible. It's good to just let your mind go and just write as much information as you can, and not to filter yourself. You can go back and change this, a little bit, right? So that's the incident. And if I go back up to step 1, I've got the planning. I've got the my characters. I'm gonna jot down the emotions they feel under. One thing I need to do is I'm gonna go to save this document to my desktop, and let's call it Unit 4, Culminating Activity. Put my last name in there. Don't want to lose that. And so, once you've written your outline, you have, or you've done some writing here. I can even do some notes to myself. So I could notes. So these are notes to myself for the rough copy. What do I want to do here when I come back to this document? And then I'll come back to it tomorrow, and then you'll see how I can, after, a night's rest and thinking about it, you come back to it, you can change it up, right? And then maybe tomorrow do like a little bit of editing, but then look at putting it into a a memo format. So that's one of the big things you have to work out here. So you might want to. So maybe I'll put an action you can take. So one action you can take is to develop a list of all the characters and their mental physical states during the incident. Yeah, I didn't really do the physical states. That we could do that though. So let's see. Let's see. He's gripping the controls. He's sweating. He's having a hard time thinking. Especially with being yelled at by Sam, the engineer. So these are some details we can add maybe in the story itself, which is looking at 276 words. So we're getting there, right? So the most of the story is there. Let's see, another action you can take. So another important thing is to start thinking about. Oops, I don't need that in bold. Let's do. Let's start thinking about the sender of the workplace report and who they will send it to. So I got a few options there. It could be from Larry himself. That might be the most easiest because he's like the main character. The incident involves him, and he would probably write it to Carol, the production manager. So she's the production manager. She is Larry's boss, right? So so Sam. So and that's kind of something you could talk about, and that's especially relevant to a workplace report, especially like in an industrial setting. sometimes people have multiple bosses, right? And they do have one direct supervisor that they report to, but in the course of their day, there may be several authority figures that they interact with, and they see where one of them has direct control and power over them, but they're still responsible to talking to other ones. So in this setting, um, you know, you know, Sam has some authority. He has some authority over Larry, but is not his boss. So maybe I'll just put a note to myself here. So I think the report, which is written in memo format, will be written by Larry and sent to Carol. So you're inventing a situation, and you're telling the story of what happened. So part A can be like written in the third person, like you're talking about everybody. Larry did this, Mark did this, Nancy did that, and then part. So what we're doing here is we're doing part A, and part A is the story of what happened. It's the story about what happened. This part can be written in a first person narrative, so that remember the a first person narrative is when we use that I voice. So for example, like I worked at a you could say I worked at a Walmart. And then in that case in that case, it's written from your perspective, right? So the story is told directly from your point of view. Or you can do it the other way, or the story is told in the third person point of view, where you mention people's names, and and can also, you can describe what they said, felt, thought, etc. So you might want to do that here under notes to myself. You could add some dialogue. Could add some dialogue, maybe question mark things that we're talking about here. So, but in any case, we've got ourselves off to a good start. We've got an outline that's keeping our thoughts sort of focused. We've got some thoughts as to how part B is going to work out, who's going to send the memo, and so that sets us up nicely for tomorrow. So when we meet tomorrow, we'll look at part B, and I will look at transferring what I wrote today into a memo format.